and welcome back to the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with another race driving the Group 4 cars at Interlagos. I've decided again to pick the Megane here. This car really does suit me. A lot of people tended to do the qualifying in the Mitsubishi. I qualified in the Megane. I think I was the highest qualifying Megane on a 1 minute 37.0, exactly the same time as in the sprint race that was on a few days ago. You can see there starting the race. I'm obviously starting from pole, like I say. Behind me, Oscar Stefanzi, a very fast driver, and TRZ Benny as well, very fast driver at this track. As you can see there, the reason why a lot of people tended to qualify the Mitsubishi and then went through to the Megane was its fuel saving ability is very good. Although you have to be a bit careful with it, because when you're trying to save fuel with this car, its straight line speed is very weak, so you have to be very tactical on how you do this and trying to utilise any opportunities you can get. So you're going through the first corners. I managed to get away fairly cleanly. Started to try and get out of the slipstream, to try and break the slipstream from the cars behind, because I wanted to build up a little bit of a gap so that they couldn't use my car to slipstream and help them out. However, I knew that one driver, Treviso, I don't know how it's pronounced, was in the other Megane, which I knew straight away would not be able to do this race without pitting. He is going to have to pit, so I felt like I could use him to help my race out. So you can see there, I knew he would be coming through because he's obviously on a different strategy. I ran very wide through that corner, as you can see there, which was a horrible mistake, and that actually gave me a 3-second penalty, and that was my own fault. I knew that would do that on that corner, and I just ran wide. I got a bit of understeer and unfortunately picked up a 3-second penalty. So now I've got to try and use everything I can to build up enough of a gap to get rid of that before the finishing line. So you can see there, I knew that he'd be coming through in the more powerful Megane, but not so good on its tyre wear and also not quite as good on the fuel. So you can see he's going to gain on me. So what I'm trying to do at this stage is build up a cushion so that P3 can't pick up his slipstream and obviously try and get back into this race with myself, because I knew my race was with P3. The main battle in this was always going to be with the other Megane in the race. It was unfortunate Oscar Stefanzi at the start. I think he went to brake really late and seen that I wasn't braking so late into turn 1, and he had to get out of it and he went wide, and then I think he got into a trouble going through turn 1. As you can see there, the gap behind to the other Megane, just under a second, 7 tenths, but he's going to gain on me massively down the straight. You can see there, going through this corner, I managed to build the gap up to over a second. So you can see the weakness in that Megane. And what I'm trying to do now is trying to drive fairly aggressively. I wasn't too worried about my fuel. I'm still doing short shifting, but I'm driving quite aggressive because I want to build up a cushion so that TLZ in P3 cannot utilise my slipstream at any point in this race. I've got to try and make sure that he's not going to get close enough. So I'm using probably a little bit more fuel than what I would have liked at this stage, but the aim was to build up that cushion, and then I was going to let, obviously just let the other Megane go past, because that Megane's going to be so fast in a straight line. I'm not going to bother fighting it. I want to use him to help my race out, and that's what you've got to do in these races, when it's more about tactics than it is about outright speed. You probably could have done this track outright speed, but I think you would have finished at least 6-7 seconds slower. The no stop strategy at this track is the best strategy if you can make it work. It's purely because of the pit lane loss. I don't know why people still try and pit at this track, because just doesn't work. If you need to find a car that's good with its fuel and utilize that, because the pit lane loss here is quite a big amount. You need to just pick a car that can pretty much save its fuel. As you can see there, got enough of a gap now to P3. You can visually see I've built up a bit of a gap to him, and that's really helped me out, because although I've used a lot of fuel, it'll give me the chance to start saving some fuel now. So you can see me, I just let the other Megane pass. I'm not going to fight him. I've decided to start going straight away into fuel saving while he's past me, because I know what I can try and do is fuel save in the corners and still gain on him, and then short shift down the straight and use his slipstream as much as possible. You can see, look at the difference through the corners. My car is just so much better through the corners. I'm able to push on the power. He's got front wheel drive, I've got rear wheel drive, and through the corners there's no match. This Megane that I'm in through the corners is going to be so much faster than him, but down the straight, look at the difference. But this is where I'm able to utilise him to short shift and to still gain some speed down that straight. So you can see in the distance there, around 2 seconds behind is P3, who's now going to have to drive a little bit more aggressive than probably I am. He obviously wants to try and pick up my slipstream, but I wasn't really worried about him getting too close. All I wanted to do was make sure he didn't get within a second of me. I don't want him picking up my slipstream. So you can see there, looking back on myself, and through the corners you can visually see the difference between the two cars in terms of their handling. You can see how much better front end I've got, but then you will see on the power zones, as soon as we get to any acceleration zone, you'll see the Megane, the front wheel drive Megane, pull away, and I'll start dropping back a bit. But then again, through the corners, I'm just able to carry so much more speed and get a better line through that corner. And this is all helping me out because I'm fuel saving while behind him in the corners, and I'm then fuel saving in his slipstream. So this was the 8. I knew straight away this is what I had to do because I seen that Megane behind me, and I knew that Megane's going to be able to get past me no matter what. So I wanted to use him to my advantage, and you can see there down the straights it's pretty much going to pull away and keep pulling away, but this isn't a massive issue as long as I can short shift at this phase and still pick up some slipstream. You know, he's getting pretty much to a second away, but then through the corners you're going to see I'm going to be able to close that back up as soon as we get into the corners and just start picking the slipstream up again as we ride on board. Now you can see in fuel mixture 2, you can see how I'm saving the fuel, but then you can see, look at the delta come back down now through the corners, back down from over a second to nearly 6 tenths. And this is all helping me out. You see I can then go into one mixture and short shift down, so you'll visually see, you can see how much short shift I'm doing. You see changing gear halfway there in 5th gear and just judging it so that I don't lose too much of his slipstream, but then again in the braking zone I catch up another 10th and I'm able to get two tenths on him just in the braking zone, and then I'm back in his slipstream. So then now I can go to fuel mixture 2 and I can start saving fuel through the corners because I'm just going to be able to get right back up his gearbox because of the ability of this car and the fact that I really do like this car. I don't use any traction control, nothing like that with this car. A lot of people tend to use traction control and other stuff because they say it's quite loose. I don't really feel that. All I feel is grip and a great front end on this car. So it's quite strange that other people feel the need to use assist with this car because, I mean, unless it's on the pad, I'm not too sure, but with a wheel, I find this car really nice to drive and it pretty much suits my driving style. I think, you know, there's cars that suit a certain style of driving, this car really suits myself. So you can see there, again, picking up his slipstream. So for the back straight, again, I've got the advantage of the slipstream. So TLZ there, 2.6, 2.7 seconds behind. He's going to be gaining on me because he's going to have to use more fuel to do that. So for me at this stage, I'm not too worried about him. I know he's my main threat, but I know if I keep him out of the slipstream and try and save some fuel for the last 3 laps, the aim was to try and save enough fuel for the last 3 laps to push a bit harder and to build that gap back up, because I knew that he'd be able to get that gap under 2 seconds to myself, and then I've just got to manage the gap all the time. You can see there P1, I don't know if he realised at this phase of the race, obviously I think this was possibly one of his early races, you know, first races. It was quite late at night, but I think it was one of his first races that he'd done at this track, and maybe he wasn't aware that, you know, this was a strategy. And this was this was my 3rd race, I think, and even in my first race I knew straight away that the strategy with this car was to just go for the short shifting and not pit, because I've done previous races at Brazil, I've mentioned it in other videos. If you can drive this track without pitting, you need to do it, because the pit lane loss is quite a bit. It's one of the biggest amounts on any of the tracks in the game. As you can see there, dropping down to 1.2 seconds as we come into the midway point on lap 5. But again, I'm not too worried. You can see myself even going into fuel mixture 3. I'm not really worried about that because I know that through the corners I'll be able to just start picking up his slipstream again. You can see again straight away I'm nearly under a second and I'm starting to pick up the slipstream again now. So back in his slipstream, and it's going to help me out even while I'm saving fuel through the corners again. So into fuel mixer 1 for the power zone, which we're going to come out after this corner. And again, just as long as I can pick up that slipstream just a fraction, it's going to help me out. You know, 1 miles per hour, 2 miles per hour is better than nothing. And you can see there coming into the braking zone, going to gain on him again in the braking zone, getting on the power as early as I can to try and pick up his slipstream a bit more there. You can see I really put the power down because I wanted to pick up his slipstream so I can again start short shifting. You can visually see it on the screen, short shifting all the way down the straight. And this Megane is very good at fuel saving. I think they're going to probably cut the fuel saving ability back on this car a bit, but the reason why it's so good on the fuel is because it's so light, because they've had to obviously weaken its power. They've obviously wanted to keep the handling the way it is, and that's because it's a very light car. But because of that, they've made it very weak on the power also, and then all this is doing is it's making it very good on the fuel. So it could be a very good car for the FIA, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be a big patch out before the FIA season starts, because we've had no news. It's coming to the end of the month and it looks like they're delaying the FIA season again. It looks to me like they're going to launch a patch which hopefully will include some new features. You know, maybe they want to bring in the weather before the launch of the FIA season. That'll be interesting if that does come, but who knows. You know, I know that for a fact that we're definitely getting wet weather in the game. It'll be standard wet, you know, there won't be any dynamic, it will just be a wet track from the start, but you know, that is really good. It's, you know, it adds variety, and I'm looking forward to when that eventually comes. maybe they're waiting to bring that in with the new tyre model. I'm guessing they'd want the wet weather and the new tyre model in coming on the same patch. It would make a lot of sense, and maybe they want to bring all that in for the first FIA season. So it'd be really interesting if that's what their plans are. I don't know this, obviously this is just me speculating. As you can see, they're getting very close to the P1 as they're coming through to the pit stop phase, and this has really helped me out because all I'm trying to do is get, I can afford to get on the power right as much as I can when I'm that close to him and just stay in his slipstream, because I know the Megane's going to pull away from me, the front wheel drive Megane, even when I'm on maximum power. So you can see me just using this slipstream. P3 is getting very close. You can see he's under 2 seconds and he's close to picking up my slipstream. So what I've got to do now, as P1 pulls in that pit like I expected, is now I've got to manage this gap to P2 and then save my fuel for the last 3 laps to pull away, and then I can try and get rid of that penalty and still get the win in this race. It's going to be very close and very hard. Obviously P2 was very good at this track. He's always been good at this track. I remember very early in my days on this game, just in January when I first got the game pretty much, he was able to drive very well. As you can see now, we're going to have a little look at the fuel difference. You can see myself there, got a little bit more fuel than P2, and that's because I was using the slipstream, and this is why it's so important to do it, because you can see that little bit of fuel, it might only be 3, 4, 5%, something like that. It might be a bit more than that. I really don't know from looking at the screen. You can see just visually that it was, and also you can see that I had better tyre wear when we had a little look at that comparison then. And all this is going to help me out on the last few laps, and it's why I was doing what I was doing behind P1 before he pitted. And this is really going to benefit myself out on the last few laps. I've got to push really hard though, because P2 is within a second. You can see that he's not within a second, sorry, he's within about 1.3, 1.5 maybe seconds, and I just didn't want to let him get my slipstream. So the aim now is just to avoid him getting my slipstreams and just using the extra bit of fuel I've got to manage that gap. It's really important just to try and make sure no one picks up your slipstream at this phase now, because as long as he's out your slipstream, he's not able to do any extra fuel saving to you. So that's what I was trying to do now, is just manage it all and keep it under control. And like I was saying, yeah, with regards to the FIA, I have a feeling that it could all come in one big patch maybe at the end of this month, and then we may be launching in July with the FIA season. I have no idea how they're going to run it, but I feel like they just keep delaying it. I don't know what's going on at Polyphony, but they need to hurry up, because I think these lack of FIA races is becoming a bit of an issue. These daily races, they need to add something more, a little bit more to this game why it's like this, because there's just it's just the same thing, 3 races, 1 race that I pretty much want to race, because I'm not a massive fan of the short races. Even this is class, this is basically a short race when you think about it. 11 laps is not a long race. We want the FIA races that are a bit longer and a bit more fun. So let's hope they bring them back soon, or at least add another daily race, an endurance race, at least a 30-minute race or a 40-minute race, something. A lot of people are asking for it. I've seen it on the forums, on GT Planet. So many people want this, and it's just strange that they're not giving us this feature. It's not a hard feature for them to do. Just add another daily race with, a longer race, and just do it and give the people what they want. It's simple. As you can see there, the gap around 1.5 seconds, around that gap in 1.4 seconds, and you can see it's just about managing the gap at this phase. You can see myself using 1 mixture but short shifting through this section at this phase. And you can see it on the fuel that's remaining. I've done really well on my fuel management. You can see there I've got a reasonable amount of fuel left, which is, I've actually got more fuel for the laps that I've got to do. You can see there, and that's because I've been obviously saving the fuel as we're coming to the end of lap 8. So we'll have 3 laps left after we go over the line. We'll have obviously lap 9, 10, 11. So three and a bit laps to go, and I've got 3.6 laps of fuel at this stage, and pretty much as I go over the line it's going to be about 3.4 laps. So you're going to see I've got that little 0.4 of fuel, 0.4 of a lap extra than what I need, but that's based on how I've been driving. So that's why I've been saving the fuel, because now I've got to start putting some laps in. You can see lap 8 was my best lap of the race, and I've managed to starting to pull away a bit now. You can see that obviously TLZ is 1.1 seconds behind me, so he's obviously pushing as well at this phase of the race, but I was pretty much confident. I knew that there was no way he was going to be able to maintain that type of speed to the end. What he's trying to do at this phase is trying to pick up my slipstream, because he knows he's struggling on the fuel, so he knows he needs to pick up that slipstream. So you can see myself pushing a little bit harder, doing some fuel saving but not massive amounts, and you're going to see the gap starting to increase now. As you can see there, going straight up to 1.5 seconds, 1.6, as I think he's realised he's got to do the fuel saving. He's not picked up the slipstream when he needed to, and it got very close to him picking it up obviously, but he just wasn't able to do it. And now I can start putting in some better laps and just driving smooth and obviously doing a bit of fuel saving when I can, because I want to be able to make sure that for the straights I've got the ability to rev it a little bit more and start building that gap up. This is around 1.6 seconds, 1.7 seconds now, but I need to get it over 2 seconds. I knew that to get rid of a 3-second penalty, 3.3, you know, around that type of distance, I need a gap of over 2 seconds. 2.2 to 2.5 seconds is what I pretty much need to make it comfortable. I wasn't aware of this phase if he had a massive penalty. When I looked back at him, I saw that he had a penalty, but you know, that could just be a 1 second, it could be a 3-second fight, who knows. So I had to keep pushing and try and build this gap up as much as possible to the end. It was getting quite tense, and I must admit, you know, I was confident of my ability to extend this gap, but I wasn't confident at this stage of being able to get rid of that penalty at the finishing line and have enough time to win the race still. So you can see there, having to really try and drive smooth but try and drive aggressive at the same time. It's such a hard thing to do, is still saving fuel but trying to push the car as hard as you can. It really is a tactical race, and you've got to be very disciplined in your approach to driving when you're driving like this. As you can see there, getting the gap up to nearly 1.8 seconds. It's getting very close to the amount that I need. Obviously I wanted it over 2 seconds, putting it back into one mixture now and accelerating out that corner and trying to push into these corners now. And then again, you can see he's managing to hold on, but I feel like he's using he's not got the fuel in every position. What you'll see is different points is where I tend to pull away and he gains a bit. It's obviously where he uses different zones to save the fuel. It was possible that he was doing more saving through the corners than I was, maybe using 3 or 4, and then revving a lot higher down the straights. Because I noticed through the corners I tended to pull away a bit more. So it's just counters, you know, different strategies. I think if it on a plain, you know, a simple race where we were both together and no one was picking up slipstreams, we would have been very close. It would have been pretty much identical. But because I did that on that start, I used a little bit of fuel to pull away and then used P1 slipstream to help me out. It's really gaining the advantage for me, you know, through that phase of the race. You can see they're picking it up to 2 seconds now. So at this stage it's getting very close, 2.1, 2.2 seconds. It's what I needed, and I needed a little bit more than that. I wanted to try and push to get it to around 2.4, as you can see, going over the line with another personal best of the race. You can see the consistency's been really good in the race. You know, the first proper lap was a 40 point something, but that wasn't a great lap. It was just about, you know, getting into the rhythm. Lap 3 a 39, a 39, and then every lap has been a 39, and then from 8 to 9 and 10 has just been gradually improving. You can see there, lap 7, 0.5, and then a 0.3, then a 0.2, and then a 0.1. And it's just a constant improvement of the lap to try and build this gap up, and this is why I did it. You can see it on the lap deltas. Saving that fuel has really helped me out at the end of the race, and it's just kept the driving consistent, and it's also helped the tyres. The tyres have been great because I've been obviously looking after them that little bit more in certain places when I've been saving fuel. I've not been, you know, getting on the power so early out of corners. I've been very tactical in how I've driven this so far. Using fuel mixture 2 is a great thing through these corners as well. You can probably use obviously a higher fuel mixture, but I just wanted to have speed as well as you know, saving the fuel. And the fuel mixture 2 gives you such a nice front end on most cars. It gives you a bit of power, but it gives you a really positive front end, I find. So it's a nice mixture to use through some of the corners. You can see they're building the gap up to 2.4 seconds, and this is getting pretty much close to how much of a gap I felt I'd need, because to get rid of a 3.3 second penalty doesn't take 3.3 seconds when you do it at the finishing line. If you do it on the track whilst you're driving, you will lose more because you've then got to get back up to speed. But if you do it at the finishing line, you don't need to get back up to speed, and that's why you should always do your penalty before the finishing line. As you can see there, going down the straight now, it's 2.4 seconds, 2.3, 2.4, and I've just got a break before the finish, being aware that the checkered flag is not where the finishing line is. It's a bit short of that. You can see there, getting rid of all the penalty and then going over the line, accelerating to the line, and I've managed to take that P1. So he had a 1 second penalty also, but even without that I would have won by 7/10. So a great race, very close at the end, but I feel that the strategy definitely helped myself out. You know, without myself picking up that 3.3 second penalty, I would have clearly won that by about 2.5 seconds, so it would have been quite a comfortable win. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. I wanted to drive have most of the footage on board like I did there, obviously switching the cameras around sometimes, but most of the footage on board to try and give you guys as much information and detail as possible in terms of helping you out with this track, in terms of fuel saving, and with this car. You can see how I ran it. I think I ran a reasonably good race. It probably wasn't as fast as some people were able to run it, but it was definitely a reasonable pace that was going to get you wins in this race. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that video. If you did enjoy it, make sure you click the thumbs up. I do appreciate everyone that gives these videos a thumbs up. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed. Click that notification button so you don't miss any future videos. I do upload every single day, and also I'm now back on iRacing, and there's going to be iRacing content coming to the channel every week as well. So make sure if you're interested in that, you do subscribe. Thanks again for watching, everyone.